This particular target was the Milk Hill Formation of 1997. Now, what's interesting about this individual detected these roaring sounds at the site, and she said it's a place to break contact with the real world. When I went around to this particular location, I talked to some of the people in the area, and what they said is they heard roaring sounds that night when that crop circle was made. Whatever made those roaring sounds. Now, the interesting thing is, having to do with extraterrestrials here, is this particular viewer, we actually did this session right here in this hotel, by the way, when we were using this space for our classes. She didn't like paranormal topics. She didn't like things having to do with extraterrestrials, anything kind of spooky or weird. So she actually stopped the session. She didn't like it. But the interesting thing is, about a week later, she had a sighting of a UFO in Estes Park at night, about 30 feet down from her car, very big, and she no longer felt afraid of it. So this is kind of like a reverse example of resonance, where doing the session actually seems to open you up to new experiences, rather than just as something to get information about. This is a picture that someone gave us from an individual that worked for the government who wanted to see if we could actually do this target. It's from Area 51, S4. You can see the MiG fighter planes in front of the hangars. This is the drawing that the viewer drew, very close replication of the picture. The viewer was in Salt Lake City. All I told her was, would you like to do a session? She said, yes. I said, here are the coordinates. End of conversation. And she was able to reproduce the picture pretty closely. And so when she walked around into the hangar, she said she saw silver discs. Now, we can't verify that because we can't go in there, but we can see that the rest of the session was accurate. This is the Rocketdyne facility in Simi Valley outside of L.A. A UFO researcher asked us to take a look at this after there was a crash there of a triangular disc in the late 90s. And he wanted to see if this facility was connected to L.A. in any way with underground tunnels. I haven't been there, and I don't know too much about it, but the viewer, without any prompting from us, did pick up, said this is connected to a nearby city, this base. So it's kind of interesting we get some sort of same sort of information that the researcher was looking for. When we do UFOs, sometimes you just get the sense of the roundness of the object. There's some level of verification there, the color, so forth. The Phoenix lights is something that we looked at. I don't know if these are flares or not, but the first viewer got something that looks to me more like flares than really solid objects or different objects. But the second viewer got something that's a lot like Governor Fife Symington described, which is a large, black, metallic triangle, which thousands of people apparently saw that night over Arizona. So one viewer got something that looks like the lights, and the other viewer got something that looks like the larger object that was seen earlier in the evening. Mexico City, 1997, we sent a number of viewers to look at this. One of the viewers kind of described the disc next to the building, as you can see, and had a sense that it was a UFO going from one destination to another. Another viewer described it. He got a feeling he shouldn't be there looking at it. Another viewer got a space-age chair and then described mechanical intelligence with a pointed head and careful planning. And so we actually can't go inside the UFO, but we got people to locate the object, to identify the size and so forth. So that is some level of contact you get with it. The point I'm making here is that all of these targets, whether it's verifiable targets or targets that are harder to verify, have some degree of verifiability. It's never just one or the other. After all, if you took this glass and you said you wanted to view it, I mean, we'd all agree it's kind of a plain, ordinary target. But if we threw in some dark matter and then tossed it into a black hole, it'd become an anomalous target. You see, it all depends on the context, and that's what I'm trying to say here. It depends on your state of knowledge, which is changing from year to year. Here's one which I would call more of an imaginal target. This is the Gray's Galactic Gateway near Earth. And I can't verify this unless I get aboard a Gray ship and see one of their maps if there's really a gateway nearby. But it's certainly fun to do one of these targets once in a while, even though this has zero level of verifiability with the technology we have right now. We've also viewed sometimes future announcements of extraterrestrial activity from a government source. And that's interesting to do, something that would happen in the future. And sometimes we get information about that. Now let's look at the last part of we want to look at here is crash retrievals. This is a new phase of remote viewing, something I've learned about from the Woods at their conference. You can take viewers, and actually it's a very interesting way to use it because you have a lot of information going in here. And where you don't have a lot of information, you can get more information. At this site near Garrison, across from Great Basin National Park, if you've ever been out there, there's the Desert Range Experimental Station, where in 1953, witnesses saw something crash in that area, right in this lake bed. And you can see it here from these pictures. We'll get close in here. That there's this large anomalous triangle. Now, various military sources told Linda Moulton Howe that this indeed was a craft that was very large, too heavy to move, too dense to cut, so they just buried it. And what we're told is that remote viewers were later sent to look at this site, and I believe Joe McMonagle found that indeed there was a crash here, but what he got was that it had been moved since then. So we have different types of information. But it is an example where you can actually coordinate remote viewing with eyewitnesses and military insiders to kind of get more sense of what's going on. So the point is, I think remote viewing is used best when it's used in conjunction with other sources, because by itself sometimes you may get information, but you may have to wait a long time to actually verify what you're getting. So any questions so far about any of that? Thanks for listening.
We have time for Q&A. Here's one right here.
In these remote viewing tests, how could you exclude the possibility that the remote viewers were, rather than clairvoyantly sensing something at a distance, they were picking up by telepathy from your own mind? Because the experimenter, you, knew what the target was, right? Therefore, it could have been telepathy.
Right. What you're talking about is an issue when the viewer is actually viewing the picture, perhaps sitting here on the table, than actually going to the site. And one way to get around that is actually to see if the viewer can pick up more than is in the picture, or more than even the tasker knows about. And if they did pick it up, like Pat Price picking up these steel metal gores inside the building that no one knew about at the time, then you know that the viewer actually went to the site versus just reading the mind. That's called telepathic overlay, and it's definitely an issue, and it's something to pay attention to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the concern was more than you're looking at the picture. If you know the answer or your desired answer and you're sitting with a viewer, there doesn't even need to be a picture. He can get the answer directly from you. So the idea of doing remote viewing where you have profound amount of information concerning the target and the answer you want is really quite a bad idea.
Well, that's the thing. But if the viewer comes up with more information than you even knew about, then you knew they're not reading your mind. I mean, that's certainly an issue. If all they ever get was what you saw, then you could say they were doing that. But it's something to pay attention to. But I don't think you can ever totally exclude that unless you actually go through a lot of protocols and make sure it's double-blind and so forth. Then you would exclude that possibility entirely. But it's certainly something to think about. Absolutely.
So what happened after they found that triangular shadow? I'm sure they did not just say, oh, well, too many blackberries, we can't go.
The black, can you tell me more specifically what you're referring to? Are you referring to the Phoenix Light Triangle or that triangle in the desert?
The triangle in the desert.
In the desert.
We have to ask Bob would know about the update on that. It's not my specialty. Is there any update on that, Bob?
I heard the briefing myself, but I don't remember what the follow-up was. I mean,
About the DRES site, the Desert Range Experimental Station. Is there any update on the information about that site?
No,
Garrison,
not that I have.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks very much. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.